What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today what I want to talk about is how to fish a crankbait in the wintertime. And what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you through all of my GoPro footage through the day of how I fish a crankbait. You'll get to see me catch fish, see me not catch fish, and I'm going to break down everything about why I'm fishing, where I'm fishing, and how I'm fishing this crankbait to help get me more bites, even in bluebird skies and flat calm conditions. So stick around, you're not going to want to miss this video. Alright, so what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm focusing solely on how to fish a crankbait in the wintertime. And so you can see I just got on the water first thing in the morning, and what I did was I started Main Lake. And so if you notice in the background, there's gravel and rock mixed up on the bank, and what it is it's a transition from where, if you look out over my right shoulder, that is the Main Lake. And what it is it's a transition where the bank goes from really steep to shallow, where it tapers out. And that's what I'm focusing on, is those natural transitions, that deep to shallow water. That's what I was really focusing on. And so there was a shallow pocket right here over my left shoulder, and there was a rocky bank straight over my right shoulder. And what I did is I just worked through there and was really trying to cover some water to see how I could find those fish. Now, the one thing that I was running into is you saw me just pick some grass off of my bait. What it was there's some small elodia on the bottom, and it just grows real short and real shallow, and it was constantly bugging me all day. But I don't think I caught anything off of this bank, so we're going to fast forward and go through to some of the areas where I actually start getting bit. But the reason I focused Main Lake was because it was first thing in the morning, it was colder, and with that water temperature getting down colder at night, that water temperature I think was about 48 degrees right here. It was 23 degrees in the morning, and so that's why I wanted to go to deeper water access where that water would be a little bit more stable, where I think I would have a better chance of getting bit. As the water warms up, as that sun comes out, that's when I'll start to move back into these pockets. But right here, I started Main Lake, and now we're going to go a little bit faster forward to where I start catching some fish. So some of the areas that I like to focus on first thing in the morning, you can see I'm still bundled up here, is I'm focusing on Main Lake points that have a rock on them, because in the wintertime those fish kind of transition out of the wood for a lot of times. These spotted bass do anyway, and they start gravitating toward rock, and that's a big thing. Once that water starts to get below 55 degrees, they start to get into that rock. So this was just another example of what I want to show you of something that I'm looking at, but this was just a Main Lake point that had a lot of rock and a lot of boulders off of it. I did not get bit on this one either, and so I was just kind of bouncing around, and that's why I like cranking, because I was able to cover water fast and just keep moving. So now you can see that sun is fully up, but what I want you to focus on is how I'm working that crankbait. You'll notice I'm not just straight retrieving it, I'm constantly doing something with that rod. And so what I want you to focus on is just kind of how I go, and I start and I stop it, and I'm constantly moving that rod tip. And because what it is I'm worming that crankbait across the bottom. As I feel that rock, I hit it, I will just pull my rod tip to the side. I will try to get that crankbait to deflect even more. And I think there's a rock pile that I found right out in front of me right here that I saw on my 360, and again, this is just, I just get hammered off of that rock pile. And if you notice my rod tip, when that fish hit it, I deflected off that rock and I hit it real hard, and so as soon as that crankbait deflected, that big spotted bass just absolutely smashed it. And I think this was one of my first or second bites in the morning. You can see it's still cold out. It's not warmed up hardly at all, but that sun has come out, and that's why those fish will start gravitating toward that shallow rock, because that shallow rock warms up faster. And I think I actually have to go to the back to land this one, because it's actually a pretty big spotted bass. But you can see on the bank over the right hand side of the screen, there's a bunch of rock.
Talking about got it. So we just had a nice rock pile right here where there was a bunch of rock just sitting offshore, and you can see when that crankbait deflected off of there, that fish just absolutely choked it. And so even though it's cold, these fish kind of congregate on these isolated rock piles, and they're still relatively shallow. They're 8 to 10 feet of water, and it's not like a money-making deal where you're going to go catch 100 fish a day, but it is a tournament-winning deal where you can catch tournament-quality fish doing it, because there's still a good population of fish that live shallow.
So I went a little bit further back in the pocket in this video, because the water's warmed up a little bit more. I think the water was 49, 50, but if you look over my right shoulder, it's just a large rocky point. And what it is that rock tapers off a fair amount, and so I bomb a cast up there because I think I started to see a couple fish scattered on it with my Panoptics, which I was leaving on so that way I could get a better cast at this rock, even though you don't need it. And I know it's kind of hard to see my retrieve, but I'm doing the same thing where I'm starting and stopping it and really grinding that crankbait into that rock and going as slow as I can with it, because with that colder water I'm trying to slow that bait down and really grind the bottom the best I can. So here I get a nice cast. You can see it landed right off the bank. And in the back over my left shoulder, you can see that's the back of a pocket right there. So this is just a point in the back of a pocket where I figured it was going to be more largemouth territory. Right there I get absolutely hammered again because I was grinding that rock, moving that crankbait super slow, and it just erratically will be moving across the bottom. And for this setup, I have a 7.2 Arc Invoker Pro. It's a crankbait style rod, but it's a little bit faster action. And so those 6 cents crankbaits that I throw have triple grips on them, and so I like that. So when they slap at it and I hook one, I can really drive that hook home because I really don't lose those fish once I get them on that. I think I'm throwing this on 12-pound line as well. And again, that's a 6 cents curve, which is just a wiggle wart style crankbait. And right here I catch a big largemouth.
Big old green head. It's got the head of a dang 4-pounder on it, but yeah, probably one of the prettiest largemouth I've ever caught. Like, look at the colors on that guy. That one just barely got it, and you can see I'm out here and it's super sunny out. It's literally bluebird skies. There's literally barely any clouds in the sky, but yet they're still eating a crankbait, because what's happening is with the cold nights, that shallow water warms up later in the day, and those fish get on those rocks because those rocks hold heat. And so when they hold heat, those fish will get right up on there and sit right up in those rocks, and as you bang it through those rocks, you'll get some big fish to react. Pretty insane bite, pretty awesome bite, but it's been fun. We're gonna go catch some more.
So at this point, it's around noon, I want to say. That sun is really beating down, and I found a large rock pile offshore in about 8 feet of water, but it comes up to like 5 feet. It's just a massive boulder pile. And so this is like my first couple casts across it with that crankbait. And right there, I bounce off the rock. You could see my rod deflect. You can see I'm still snapping that crankbait, trying to get any debris off of it, trying to elicit a reaction strike. But I'm always doing something with that crankbait because I'm really trying to get it to just look different on the bottom and get it to deflect in different kind of ways, which is absolutely key in the wintertime. Because those fish aren't actively feeding a lot of times, a reaction is a really good way to get them to bite. So right there, I hit that again, and you can see I'm going to hit it again here in just a second, I think. I bounce it right off those rocks because there is a giant boulder pile right there. It was super sweet to see that. So I got to clear my crankbait off. And it's always important to check to make sure your crankbait is still running true. You know, I did a short video on how to adjust that if you need to, so you can go back on the YouTube channel and check that out. But right here, I think I'm going to get absolutely smashed. Let's see. I'm going to deflect off that rock pile. It's all about lining it up. Yep, I get absolutely hammered right there. So sometimes it takes a second, but you can see making multiple casts at the same piece of cover. If those fish are there, oftentimes just getting that right deflection will be enough to trigger those fish, but sometimes it takes a little bit to trigger them. And so that's why you see guys like Greg Hackney who preach making repetitive casts at the same piece of cover, especially in the wintertime, because you really just have to get those fish to trigger. And so that's what I did right there. And you can see I had a couple other rods laying out there, but these spotted bass in the wintertime, my gosh, they fight so hard. But this is a lake, this is actually Chatoog, and this is a lake that is known for deep spotted bass, and I'm in 6 feet of water, 6 to 8 feet of water cranking, catching tournament winning spotted bass, which is absolutely crazy.
Bang. Not a giant, but a nice fish.
And so I'm still on that isolated rock pile. There was a ton of fish that followed that one in, so I kind of gave him a second to reset up. And all I did was just position my boat downwind. That was the first cast after this fish, I think. I loaded right up, I bounced it off of that rock pile, and I watched that fish come out on Panoptics after I deflected it and had that fish absolutely smash it. And if I'm not mistaken, I think this was a really big spotted bass. I think it was like a 3 3/4 pound spot. But again, these fish just dig so hard as they're pulling. And when you get one of those big spotted bass on those crankbaits, it's important. What I do is I back my drag off. So I'll keep my drag tighter when I first hook those fish, so that way I make sure I can get a good lean on them. But then what I do is I back my drag off because I don't like thumbing my spool with treble hooks, because if you thumb your spool with treble hooks, you get a jolt as you're trying to do it, as opposed to if you back your drag off, you get a nice smooth pull. So it's a lot less likely to really rip those crankbait hooks out of the fish's face, because you can see a lot of these fish are only having 1 or 2 hooks in their mouth.
Oh, that's a big spotted bass.
And so this is, I'm still making the same repetitive cast over here, because when you find an offshore rock pile like that, especially one of this caliber, a lot of times there's a lot of big fish on there. And this isn't like me making 3 casts and catching 3 fish. This is me grinding that crankbait into that rock over and over and over again, because I knew there was more fish there. And it's all about just breaking it down, putting different angles on that rock pile. And so you'll notice I fan cast it because I'm trying to get it to deflect off different pieces in that rock pile that'll hopefully trigger one of those different fish, because it's really all about irritating it, because those fish are colder, they like that cover, they don't want to leave that cover, and so they're just coming right back to it after they get pulled off. And so I'm going to sit here and make the same cast over and over and over again to really try to trigger these fish. I think I get bit on this cast right here, but I'm really just, yep, right there I get hammered. And you can see that wasn't my first cast back in there. And so I was just pulling it and grinding it as hard as I could, doing different retrieves, trying to get it to deflect in all kinds of different ways. But again, I try to back that drag off so that way I can make sure that I'm not pulling that crankbait out of that fish's face, because as I've talked about in this video already, this isn't a bite that I'm going to get a lot of numbers. But what I am going to get is I'm going to get bigger fish. And so I want to make sure when I hook those fish, I have as good of opportunity as possible to physically land them. That's why I have those triple grip style treble hooks on there, to make sure that when I hook one of those fish, it is absolutely pegged even when they swat at it. So that way I can make sure I get them in the boat.
They are still choking that thing.
So this was at the end of the day. I was just winding up at the end of my day. I think it was like 4:30, 5 o'clock. I went in the back as far as I could into a pocket, and this was the last gravel point. And you can tell these fish were starting to get more fired up because this fish eats it right at the boat. So hopefully you guys learned a little bit about crankbait fishing this winter time, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. So don't be afraid to like and subscribe to the channel to follow along a little bit more content. But God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.
I really don't think you can ask them to get it much better than that.